Saving money can feel impossible in today's economy. And get this, according to a recent Goldman Sachs report, 40% of those earning $500,000 or more say they're living paycheck to paycheck. Now, if people who make $500,000 a year can't save, then, well, what hope do the rest of us have? But, believe it or not, the only reason they're struggling is because they lack the same discipline as those who earn a fraction of what they do. Now, our research team here is made up of financial experts with experience in everything money, from banking to Wall Street investing, traditional assets, and even crypto. We're here to break down finances into simple steps, and I'm here to tell you today that saving money is totally doable. In fact, there are many ways to save even if you're on an average salary. Forget about $500,000. So stick around, because today we're showing you 7 rules that could help you save $10,000 in a single year. Now, we all prioritize our bills as soon as we get paid and then tell ourselves we'll save whatever is left. But let's be real, we rarely follow through. We spend hours in January building an elaborate spreadsheet that tracks every coffee, takeaway, and subscription, only to abandon it before February arrives. But your savings depend on your commitment. So how do you overcome this? Well, it's actually pretty simple. You use the reverse budget rule, where you pay yourself first. So let's say you get paid $4,000 a month. Before you do anything else, you allocate a chunk of that towards your monthly savings goal. So for instance, you could put, say, 20%, that's $800 away to build an emergency fund, to save for your retirement, to invest across various assets, or to repay any outstanding debt. You then use the money you have left, so in this case $3,200, for everything else. This could include the $1,500 for your rent, $250 for bills, $500 for groceries, $300 for transport, $200 for insurance, and the remaining $450 to cover your general living costs. You see, by reverse budgeting, you're not trying to restrict your expenses. You're just resetting your priorities. And the reason paying yourself first works so well is because you lock in your savings right away, guaranteeing that you save the money you could well have spent on things you didn't need. Rather than trying to live carefully throughout the month and save whatever's left, paying yourself first removes all the pressure and complexity. Depending on your income and how much you put aside, this can be a powerful way to save money fast. So, sticking with the example I gave a moment ago, putting that $800 away every month would mean that you save $9,600 a year. Not bad, eh? Now, of course, how much you set aside will depend on your own particular circumstances. But in some ways, the amount itself is irrelevant. The real key is consistency. So, commit to lining your own pocket first before you line the pockets of corporate bigwigs who want to rinse you of every penny you own. That said though, reverse budgeting probably isn't ideal for you if you have an irregular income or if you're drowning in debt. And if you are someone who's struggling with debt, then we have a video that shows you how to get out of debt fast, even if you're on an average salary, and you can learn more about that in the video right over here. Okay. We all know that planning your finances is super boring, but if you want to save your first $10,000, it's something you need to think about. Luckily though, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can make this process incredibly easy by using something called the wealth triangle rule. Essentially, this is where you split your wealth growing strategy into 3 categories: income generation, wealth preservation, and capital growth. The first category, income generation, focuses on growing your income streams, either with your existing job, a promotion, or a side hustle. I'll bet you have a unique passion or skill set that you can make money from. Do you love upcycling things? Well, why not build garden furniture out of pallet wood? I actually did a bit of that myself once upon a time. Like being creative? Why not learn video editing? Play games a lot? Why not start a YouTube channel? The choices here are endless. Or you can even look at passive income opportunities. This could be renting out extra space in your home, selling digital products online, like maybe a course or a template, writing a book, or even owning a vending machine. While not completely hands-off, these options require minimal effort while bringing in slow and steady returns. Now, the second category is wealth preservation, where you protect the money you have with strategies like saving, obviously, as well as insurance and risk management strategies. Your biggest focus here is building an emergency fund, preferably 3-month salary, to protect you from unexpected expenses, like your car breaking down, your boiler breaking, or maybe a hefty medical bill. And the third category is capital growth, where you grow your capital through investing. This not only grows your money, but more importantly, it protects your wealth from losing value through inflation. Ideally, you want to diversify your investments across a range of assets, so think stocks, real estate, precious metals, or even business ventures. The idea is to earn yields that beat inflation, currently 3.3% at the time of shooting, and that compound over time. If this feels a little overwhelming, then start with low-risk assets like preferred stocks or treasury bonds before gradually moving into other assets as your knowledge and experience grows. So, by breaking your plan down into 3 distinct steps, you'll have a clear framework to help you save your first $10,000. And by the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, then show it some love by pounding those like and subscribe buttons. And if you want even more value from Money Bureau, then sign up for our free weekly newsletter too. Just click the link in the description below. Okay, so keeping with the theme of threes, the third rule you can follow is the Big Three rule. This means focusing on your 3 biggest expenses, and for most people that's housing, transport, and food. According to a 2024 survey by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS, the average American household spends 33% of its income on housing, 17% on transport, and 13% on food. That's 63% in total. So, by bringing just one of these costs down, you can save yourself a lot of money. Let's start with housing. This is the biggest of the big 3 spending categories, and it's also the hardest area to reduce costs. Whether you rent or have a mortgage, the cost of simply living in your home is only part of the picture. You also need to factor in maintenance, home improvements, energy and utility bills, and insurance. The good news here is that you can cut these costs by handling basic repairs yourself, switching to a cheaper energy provider, and shopping around for better insurance deals. But what about the second largest expense, transport? The average work commute is around 27 minutes, and this costs you thousands in fuel over the year. But the biggest expense of all is the car itself. These days, cars are a status symbol as much as a mode of transport. Having all the bells and whistles means spending thousands of dollars extra to get a car which is only really meant to take you from A to B. But let's be real, any car can do that. And while you've spent a few extra thousand on the car with a nice spoiler or a bigger engine, that car is losing value by the second. In fact, cars depreciate by 20 to 30% in value in their first year and 60% by year 5. So, if you want to save cash, opt for the car that's cheaper to run rather than one that turns the most heads. And then there's food. Of the big 3 expenses, this is the easiest place to cut costs. For most people, the bulk of food spending comes from eating out, where a single meal can easily cost $20 or more. For a family of 4, that's $80 per meal. Do that twice a week and you're spending $640 a month or more, and that's before taxes and tips. So the solution here is obvious. Eat at home more often. Even cutting down eating out to once a week can save you $3,840 a year. Cut that back to once a fortnight and that jumps to $5,620. Meanwhile, you can learn some genuinely delicious recipes to cook at home that cost a fraction of the price. They take a bit more effort, sure, but there is something really rewarding about making food people enjoy. So why shouldn't that reward be financial as well? Okay, now, if you want to save $10,000, two rules you can live by are the absolute price rule and the relative price rule. They're pretty similar in nature, but both have different approaches. If you've ever taken out finance or signed up for a subscription, you've probably looked at the monthly cost, decided it was manageable, and gone ahead. Companies design these payments to feel cheap and painless, but in reality, they quietly drain thousands from you over the year while you barely notice. So instead of focusing on monthly payments, look at the total or absolute price. You'll be surprised how quickly this reveals ways to save money. So let's use Netflix as an example. At the time of shooting, a premium Netflix subscription with 4K and no ads costs $27 a month. Over a year, that's $324. Conversely, a standard plan is $9 a month or $108 a year. Now, I know, ads are annoying and we all want to see every single strand of Tommy Shelby's hair. But is that really worth an extra $216? And that's just one subscription out of the many you may possibly have. But the savings can be even bigger when you apply the absolute price rule to financing. So, say you buy a $25,000 car and spread the cost over 5 years to lower the monthly payments. At $500 a month, that feels affordable. But if you're locked in for 60 months and at an 8% interest rate, that car actually costs you $30,000, $5,000 more than the sticker price. This is why using the absolute price rule can be an easy way to cut back your costs. Alternatively, though, you can use the relative price rule instead. Basically, this is where, rather than looking at the price tag, you base your purchases on what it costs you in time and how it will affect your income and savings. This gives you a whole new perspective on spending because you're judging purchases using your most valuable asset, time. For example, if you're considering a $300 pair of shoes and you earn $30 an hour, those shoes cost you 10 hours of work. Sure, you might be able to resell them, but you'll never get those 10 hours back. And those hours add up with every purchase you make. And if you do decide to make that purchase, that same $300 can't go towards savings, emergency fund, debt repayment, or anything else. It's just gone. But does that mean you should never spend? Definitely not. Whether you use the absolute price rule or the relative price rule, the key is to stop and think, even for just a second. That can be all it takes to save you thousands of dollars over the year. All right, moving on, and the next rule you can use to save $10,000 is the 50-30-20 rule, and it's incredibly simple. The 50-30-20 rule has been used for decades and is one of the easiest ways to create a budget that saves you thousands of dollars in the long run. Basically, this is where you split your after-tax income 3 ways. 50% goes towards things you need, like your rent or mortgage, groceries, transport, energy and utilities, and your phone and internet costs. These are the bare necessities, and if you find that they take up more than 50% of your income, ask yourself where you can cut back. Can you walk instead of driving? Can you shop on a budget? Does another energy provider have better deals? Next, you allocate 30% of your after-tax income to things you want. These are the comforts in life, like your streaming services, restaurant meals, drinks at the local bar, random shopping sprees, and so on. Again, if these costs add up to more than 30% of your income, it's time to make some cuts, and realistically, this should be much easier to do. Now, the final 20% of your income should then go towards paying down debt and building wealth. If you're in loads of debt, then make sure that's the priority. But if your debt is quite manageable, then consider using some to pay it off and the rest for investing. That way, you can keep your repayments going while growing your money too, which could help pay it off faster overall. So, here's what a 50-30-20 rule might look like in practice. Let's say you're paid $5,000 a month. You use 50%, $2,500, to pay for things you need, 30%, $1,500, to pay for things you want, and the remaining 20%, $1,000, for savings and debt. It really is that simple, but it's also an effective way to spot opportunities and potentially save huge amounts of money. Okay, the next rule that could help you save $10,000 is the 30-day rule, which is one of the most effective ways to cut down your impulse spending. And the idea here is simple. You see something you want, maybe a painting that'll look good in your living room, maybe a GPU upgrade for your gaming computer, or maybe your favorite clothing brand has a sale on. But before you splash the cash, take a second to acknowledge that you're making an impulsive decision. Then you walk out of the store or leave the website and wait for, yep, you guessed it, 30 days. During that time, ask yourself if you really need that item. Ask yourself how much your life would be affected if you didn't buy it. And ask yourself if it's something you might need, but not quite yet. Now, in most cases, the impulse to buy will have gone away after 30 days, and you'll have lost interest in buying the thing that, in the heat of the moment, you felt like you had to have. And if you still decide you want it, then you can buy it in the comfort of knowing that it wasn't an impulse buy, but something that you've carefully considered. In both cases, you've made a solid financial decision, and those decisions can be the difference between spending thousands on things you don't need and watching thousands sit comfortably in your bank account. Just be careful, though, to factor in any potential price changes while you wait. If a 50% sale ends in 5 days, you can still pause before buying, but you probably shouldn't delay it for 30 days or, well, you'll end up paying double. Okay, folks, now, the final rule that'll help you save $10,000 is something called the Ulysses contract. This is essentially a way to force yourself into committing to a specific outcome rather than letting choice get in the way of you making the right decisions. Now, the Ulysses contract is named after the ancient Greek hero Ulysses, who knew he couldn't trust himself when sailing past the sirens, those mythical creatures whose song would make sailors steer straight into the rocks. So he had his crew tie him to the mast before the ship got close, removing the choice entirely. But what does this have to do with money? Well, even though you don't realize it, you make thousands of decisions every single day, and each one of those decisions slowly drains away your mental energy. Then, when you're tired, stressed, or just bored on a Friday night, that promise you made to yourself on Monday to skip the takeaway means absolutely nothing. Because the brutal truth about personal finance is that willpower is a terrible savings strategy. So, stop relying on it. Just like Ulysses removed choice from the equation, that's exactly what you need to do with your money. So set up an automatic transfer the day after payday to move a fixed amount directly into a savings account, and preferably one that you don't have on your banking app's home screen. Out of sight, out of mind. By automating your savings in this way, you make it effortless. Your bank account literally does it for you. Some people go even further by using savings accounts with waiting periods or withdrawal penalties. Others use 2 separate banks for spending and saving. And some use apps like Monzo or Starling Bank to create savings pots that feel untouchable even though they're not actually locked away. The Ulysses contract isn't the most glamorous savings method, but it's the only rule that works even when you're at your worst. When you're exhausted, when you've had a bad week, when the sails are on and your self-control is nowhere to be found. Tie yourself to the mast, and none of that matters. Okay, folks, I think that's about all for today, but if you've learned anything useful, then help us out by hitting that like button. And if you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel. Plus, if you think others could benefit from this video, then do take a second to share it with them. Okay, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.